Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our latest installment of Mountain Zoom. And tonight we're going to talk about some backyard poultry production. And we have with us Dr. Jackie Jacob with the University of Kentucky, and she is our extension poultry specialist. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Jacob. Dr. Jacob, thank you for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So get my slides up. Come on, there we go. Okay, so I can't see the chat box or anything, so if there's any questions, Jeremy, just let me know. So there are actually two of us that do poultry extension in the state. There's myself and my boss, Dr. Tony Pescatori. He's been here for like 30 some odd years now, so some of you may know him. He deals primarily with the industry people. I deal mostly with backyards, alternative production, and organic type systems. But together we keep, I do youth as well. So together we keep backyard poultry covered with any problems that can arise. So one of the first questions I get that I have to ask people is why? Why do you want to keep the backyard chickens? So, because they'll ask me, what breed should I get? What size of house? How big of a flock? I mean, they'll ask a lot of different questions about what to do. And the first thing that I have to ask them is why? Why are you keeping the birds? That will determine all those other answers is on why do you keep them. So the majority of backyard flocks keep egg layers. Some keep for meat, but most of the home flocks are for egg production, either for home use only or some for giving away some of the extras or even sale of the eggs. If you're selling your eggs, you must follow state egg law. No matter how many eggs you sell, if you're selling eggs, you must follow state egg law. You don't have to have a license, but you have to follow the law. If you're selling for meat, you can do it for your, if you're raising it for meat, for your home consumption, that's fine. Trying to sell meat, you're very limited on what you can do in the sale of meat, poultry meat, because in order to sell it, it has to be processed in a inspected facility, of which there are 2.5, because the mobile processing facility, so it's next to impossible to get them processed. So sale of poultry meat is very difficult for the small producer. Some like to keep them for exhibition. They're raising purebred chickens to take to shows. For some, it's a 4-H project. 4-H poultry projects could be a pullet project, a layer project, a purebred project, a meat type project. There's lots of different types of 4-H poultry projects. There can also be duck eggs, especially. But those are waterfowl is a whole different issue, but or are they pets with benefits in that they lay eggs, and that will affect what types of birds you're going to get, how many you're going to get, what's going to cost you to feed it, all those different things. So before you get into keeping backyard flock, you need to ask yourself why. And what are you thinking? Excuse me, I got an itchy nose. What are you thinking of doing in the future? So if you're doing it with kids and the kids grow up, what are you going to do with it afterwards? So think about all those things before you start getting into poultry. The other thing is to check the local regulations. So I can't keep track of every city's or county's regulations. So you need to check your local regulations. Maybe your county agent can help you with the county ones. They may not even know the specific city ones. They should know, maybe who to contact. And then you also have to think about your homeowners association. If you're urban and you have a homeowners association, many of them will restrict or prohibit the keeping of poultry. If they are not allowed, can you get the rules changed? So there are different groups that have organized and got areas changed with the rules that will allow poultry. So those are other things that you need to think about. Are you actually allowed to keep poultry? And a lot of the regulations are based on what is the definition of poultry. And the state regulations actually have two different definitions for poultry. In one of the regulations, poultry simply means, chickens, ducks, turkeys, or other domestic fowl kept within the state of the Commonwealth of Kentucky for profit. So if you're keeping them for pets, they wouldn't fall under that definition in the Kentucky state regulations. But in another regulation, it means that they are any of them kept on any premises in the Commonwealth, whether it's for profit or not. So while one definition would exclude home flocks, the other one does not. So which definition is your county or city or homeowners association using as a definition for poultry? You have to excuse me, I've been talking to students all day and my voice is going. Another thing that has a regulation is years ago, they used to color chicks. So you inject a dye into the egg and they hatch out colored, and they usually used to do that for Easter. And this is now totally against the law. So don't even ask me how to do it because you're not allowed to do it. So the regulations state that it is illegal for anyone to sell, exchange, offer to sell, or exchange, display, or possess living baby chicks, ducklings, or other fowls or rabbits which have been dyed or colored. No dye or color of any kind can be used for baby chicks, ducklings, or other fowls or rabbits. So that comes from, they used to do that at Easter and give them out to kids who would take them home, and then chicks were dying left, right, and center. And so as an animal welfare issue, they banned that. If you go to the feed store to buy chicks and you try to buy 3 day-old chicks, they will say, sorry, you have to buy 6. And that is a state law. According to this particular law, you cannot sell, exchange, offer to sell, or exchange, or to give away baby chicks, ducklings, or other fowls or rabbits under 2 months of age in any quantity less than 6. Again, that is an animal welfare issue. The chicks are a flock type animal, so they want them in at least a minimum of 6 that you buy. So for people who are wanting backyard flocks, a lot of times you can sell, if you buy a bunch of baby chicks, raise them up to at least 2 months of age, you can then sell 2, 3, 4, whatever you want, but you have to, you can do as long as they're over the 8 weeks of age. So there is a big market for people who would like to purchase 2 or 3 ready to lay hens. And so if you're looking for something to do to raise money, raising up pullet chicks for sale at either anywhere from 8 to 14 weeks, selling them in the big cities, Lexington, Louisville, any of those, you'll find you can get a really good price for them because they don't want to raise them up themselves. But that is a state law, again, that was put in for animal welfare concerns. So while you can't buy 3, you can buy 6. So the feed store is not trying to force you to buy more. That's just the law. You have to buy at least 6. And one of the problems that came when they first started to get into the home flock movement was that the people would get into it without realizing that, you know, you have to take care of these birds every day, 365 days of the year. Chickens don't take holidays. So, you know, the people would get them and then they'd just dump them at the shelter because they didn't know what else to do with them. Also, the chickens do not lay continuously their entire life. So if they stop laying eggs, are you willing to pay them to eat without them producing anything, especially if they're a pet? So you may not want to eat a pet. And so you have, if you're going to keep it as a pet, then you need to think about feeding it, dealing with the manure and everything else without getting the benefits of the eggs. Another important consideration is the health risk, and salmonellosis, human salmonellosis outbreaks occur every year. These are the 2020 numbers. There were 17 multi-state outbreaks with a total of 1,722 cases in 50 states, with 333 hospitalized, and one person in Oklahoma died. Many of them were children under the age of 5. And a lot of this comes from people forgetting that these are animals. All animals carry salmonella in their digestive tract. And if you handle the chicks and get it near your face, in your mouth, you know, suck your thumb after handling a chicken or being in the manure, then you're going to get sick. So every year it's an issue. The state of Kentucky always has a few. I think our maximum once was like 30 in 1 year. Sometimes we get down to 17. So we always, you know, really push that if you're going to have poultry, you have to watch out for small children and anyone with the compromised immune system, because salmonella can be transmitted from poultry to people through their manure. So anything handling of the birds, being, you know, I've seen people have chickens running around in their backyard, and of course chickens poop, and then see kids out there in the backyard running around in their bare feet in that poop. So you got to be really careful. I'm sure for most of you that's very logical, but every year we have an outbreak. So please be careful when you handle poultry. So live poultry should be kept outdoors at all times. They should not be kept in the house. Even though you can buy diapers for poultry, and I've seen people, you know, sleep with poultry, I don't recommend it. Anytime you have handled poultry, wash your hands thoroughly. Do not snuggle, kiss, or hold live poultry close to your face. So what that kid is doing is not recommended. Clean any equipment or materials used for the care of live poultry outside of the house whenever possible. I have seen people wash dirty drinkers and waters in the kitchen sink and then make dinner. So if you absolutely have to clean it in the kitchen sink, disinfect the kitchen sink before you cook any food. Children under 5 years of age and adults over 65 and people with weakened immune systems should not touch or handle live poultry. This is a CDC recommendation. As I approach 65 myself, I don't know that that is, you know, the right years. I would probably have increased that a little bit. But anyone who's going to have an immune system problem should not be handling live poultry, and kissing is definitely not recommended. So the outbreaks, I guess I was down on the numbers. This was 2020. We had 82 people in the state of Kentucky in 2020 that had salmonellosis. and that was the year that we, had COVID too. So, be careful. California was the worst. We were third place with 82. Okay, so what kinds of birds? So all the different breeds of chickens that we have, and we do have several hundred types of, or like types with breeds and varieties. They all descended from the red jungle fowl of Southeast Asia, which still exists today. And the wild jungle fowl at maturity reaches about 2 pounds. A hen produces 10 to 12 eggs per year on a seasonal basis and hatches out her own chicks. Excuse me. And through intensive selection over many decades, we have come up with a meat chicken, which they refer to as a broiler, that can reach 4 to 8 pounds in 6 to 8 weeks. And it does it very efficiently so that the cost of production for chicken meat is very low. It's one of the cheapest poultry, one of the cheapest meats on the market today. And no, it is not from hormones. No hormones are given to any poultry aside from the fact that it's against the law. It is ineffective. The chickens actually grow so fast that they try to slow them down in the beginning so that their skeletons can get better developed before they put on all that meat. And so the age that you raise it to will depend on the size of the bird that you want to eat, whether it's a Cornish hen for an individual meal, or chop up for KFC type fried chicken, or a roaster, or for further processed products. So that is genetics, nutrition, and management that's involved. Egg producers, we're up to 300 eggs per year, and they will lay year round instead of the seasonal laying that we have in the with the jungle fowl. We have white and brown commercial egg layers. So you can, and there is no difference between brown eggs and white eggs other than the color of the shell and the breed of chicken that lays them. So there are commercial white egg layers, which are based on the single comb white leghorn, and there are the brown egg layers, which come from some of the dual purpose breeds. So they're a little bit heavier. That's why it costs a little bit more to produce them. We also have some dual purpose breeds, which tend to be more of the heritage breeds, like the Barred Plymouth Rock shown here, the Rhode Island Red, other Plymouth Rocks, New Hampshires. There's a variety of them. They don't produce as many eggs as the commercial egg producers, but they do a fair amount. And once they finished, as well as the males, they have enough meat on them that makes it worthwhile to process them. And then, of course, we have the birds for show. We have birds in all shapes and sizes. We can have tiny little bantams that don't take up much room in your backyard for a 4-H project for the kid to show. And a kid, as young as 9 can handle those birds and put them in a show and have fun as an animal project, learn respect for life, learn responsibility, and learn a little bit about agriculture and biology and other STEM courses as well. So as I said, majority of the home flocks like the egg producers. And as I said, we have commercial strains for both brown and white eggshells. And there are commercial strains that have been selected for alternative systems. So while most commercial operations are currently cage-based, there are strains that have been selected specifically for the floor or outside. So there are, the geneticists have been selecting for traits that make them good in alternative production systems. They give you a really good level of production and can be grown in pretty much any system, including backyard systems. There are also sex-linked crosses. Black and red are the most common sex-linked crosses in the hatcheries. And to understand how a sex-linked cross works, you need a little bit of avian genetics. So in mammals, the male is XY and the female is XX. So genetically speaking, it's the male that determines the sex of the offspring. In birds, it's completely different. So their sex chromosomes are the Z and W, and a male is ZZ and the female is ZW. So it is the female who genetically determines the sex of the offspring. And there are some traits that are on the Z chromosome, so they call them sex-linked traits. And one of those is the barring gene. So in genetics, if something is dominant over another, it has a capital for the dominant and then the lowercase for the recessive. So in this black sex-linked crosses, if you have a female that's barred, she will have the large uppercase barring gene on the Z chromosome and nothing on the W chromosome. So she can either donate the barring or nothing. And then the non-barred male has the recessive form, so the non-barring version, which is the lowercase, and that's all he can give is the lowercase one, the non-barred. And the big barred is dominant over the non-barring. So all the males will be barred like their mother, and all the females will be non-barred like their father. When they hatch out, so at day of hatch, you can tell them apart. They all have black down, but the males have a little white dot on the top of their head to indicate that they are male. So it's much easier to sex the birds, and you get a lot less sexing errors than if you're trying to vent sex. You obviously get the occasional sexing error from worker error because there is one male in with all those females. Maybe he jumped before I took the picture. Red sex links is another one of the crosses and is very popular in some of the free range type systems. So in terms of the dual purpose breeds, that they're also very popular for backyard flocks. Some of the ones that I see most often, the Buff Orpington female is very docile. She can be quite large unless you get a bantam version. And I know a lot of people like to keep the Buff Orpingtons for egg production, give a nice brown egg. The Barred Plymouth Rock I talked about earlier with the, they do a brown egg. Rhode Island Red is very similar. And then the Silver Lace Wyandottes, people like it for the color as well as the egg production. So all four of these lay brown eggs, little differences in shade of brown. And then there are some specialty breeds that people like to raise. So the Welsummer is becoming more popular. It lays a dark chocolate colored egg. The Araucana is a South American breed. Although it comes from South America, it did originally come from the red jungle fowl. They've proven that with genetics. But instead of going through Europe to get here, it went through Polynesia. And if someone tells you it's a Araucana chicken and it has a tail, it is not an Araucana chicken. Araucana chickens have no tail, and they have these little tufts of feathers that come out of the face, and they lay a light blue colored egg. The Americana was developed by crossing chickens with the Araucana, and depending on the cross, you get light blue, light green, or pink colored eggs. And then if they are not up to the American Poultry Association standard of perfection for purebred chickens, They're called an Easter egger. So if you go to a hatchery, and you can get chicks through the mail, they might sell an Easter egger, which is basically a Heinz 57 Americana. And again, they lay the various shapes. So if you're selling eggs, you find that you can get more for your eggs if they're different colored eggshells. A lot of city folks are not used to seeing different colored eggs, and they are willing to pay for it. In terms of the purebreds for show, as I said, they come in all shapes and sizes, lots of different poultry shows throughout the state as well as nationally. The American Poultry Association does the standard of perfection and determines the standards by which the different breeds are judged. And so you can see some of the variation here. We have the white bantam Cochin, the white crested black Polish. My dad always used to like the Polish. The black-tailed white Japanese, that's another bantam one. The white Yoakum, you need special system to deal with those because of the really long tail, but some people like those. So the idea is to try and breed to the standard. If you're into that, I would recommend getting it from a known breeder. So go to some poultry shows, get to know some of the top-notch breeders, the ones that win, maybe visit their farm and get an idea of how good they are at producing and making sure that you're not just buying their cast-offs that didn't make the snuff in their selection. So in terms of planning for it, you need, of course, housing. So the housing needs to protect the birds from weather and predators. And there can be a variety of different predators depending on where you're located. And they can be anything from cats and dogs in your neighborhood to raccoons, snakes, rats, weasels. In Lexington, we even have bobcats. So, you got to be careful of what predators are in your area. And you have to think about aerial predators too. The raptors can come down and easily carry off some of the birds. And then what size of housing depends on the breed and the number of birds. The housing for 3 Buff Orpingtons is going to be different than for 5 Polish bantams or 20 egg-laying hens. They're going to be different. The cost of production depends on how much you're willing to spend. I've seen some really elaborate ones, and I've seen some ones that are pretty much eyesores and really mess with the neighbors. A run area is often recommended. I would rather see them confined in a run, especially in a backyard, where other people are living. You don't want the people, running over manure and things like that. If you're in the country and you have more area to run, that's a totally different story. But again, you have to watch out for the aerial predators. State law says that you cannot let your birds or dog or cat actually go over to your neighbor's yard. And so these guys are breaking the law by having the chickens running free loose and going into disturbing their neighbor's yard. Chickens can be quite destructive to gardens, flower gardens, as well as vegetable gardens. So keeping your birds from getting onto other people's property is important if you have neighbors. You can get some very nice ones. You can buy them at Tractor Supply or Home Depot and come already assembled or assemble yourself. You can go online and there are all sorts of designs that you could copy if you have any carpentry type skills. The one on the right has no bottom so that the chickens can, be moved around onto fresh green every once in a while. I believe it does have a solid in the inside, but the outside is not, so they can get access to fresh grass, or you can let them run around outside. It also has doors that allow you to get into access the inside to clean it. The one on the left allows you to get inside to clean it a little bit. There are doors on the other side you can't see. It also, the nest boxes are on the outside, so you just open it without going inside to get it. And it does have a little door that you can let them run around in your yard if you choose. And you can get good ventilation in there by opening up the windows or the little peepholes. These are some facilities that you can see here in Lexington. The one on the left was a dog pen that they converted into a chicken house. I mean, they had a good feeder that they, put up and down. I don't like their water. They used the dog water, which is like full of shavings. I would prefer to see an actual chicken water that, they can keep a little bit cleaner. The one on the left was with 3 Buff Orpingtons, so you don't need a large area. She can get in by opening that window there, and there is nest boxes that she can access from behind. She has the run area. You can see that she has a nice feeder and water that she can raise up and down. The only thing she didn't think about is that she's relatively tall and that run is relatively short. And it's sand. She uses it pretty much like a litter box. So she takes a bucket, turns it upside down and sits in it, and then rakes up the poultry manure out of the run. If it had been a little taller, she might have been able to do that standing up instead of having to move the bucket, upside down bucket, in order to be able to clean it out. The one on the left, again, is another mobile one that you can move around. In this particular one, they let them out during the day, so they were running out another part of the yard, and then they only lock them up at night. Again, you can see that the run has no floor attached to it. If predators are a problem, you might need a wire floor to prevent the predators from digging underneath and getting into the birds. The one on the right is more stationary. It has a more solid fence. It also has a roof over the top to keep out aerial predators. Again, the nest boxes are on the outside. You can open windows, and it does have doors that you can get into to clean it out. And again, you can get really fancy. I saw this one online. Chickens can get in there and, they can have games, but you can see that it does have netting over it to keep out the aerial predators. It has different things to attract them to different levels to get them to do different things. So again, you can be quite elaborate or you can be quite simple. Nest boxes, you need to provide nest boxes for egg laying hens. Typically, they're 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches, and you need 1 nest box for every 5 hens. But if you only have 3 hens, I would recommend more than 1 nest box because they'll all try to get in at the same time. You like it slightly darker on the inside than the outside because they like to go into that dark area to lay. When they lay the egg, the oviduct comes outside of the body cavity and then retracts, and it's very moist and glistens. And so if other chickens can see that when it comes out, they'll peck at it. It might get damaged and not retract. So you might have prolapse type of issue become a problem. And then you can get cannibalism becoming a problem as well. So making it so that they can go in there, feel comfortable, and lay their eggs is good. Having a perch in the front, especially for the upper level, so that they can land on the perch and then walk into the nest, does prevent egg breakage. And if an egg gets broken, they will eat it. And then they learn that, you know, that's what's inside those eggs. And egg eating can become a problem in some flocks. And it's a habit that's easy to form, but very hard to break. Slanting the top of the nest box also helps to prevent them roosting and defecating on it. So it keeps it a lot cleaner. And it, you know, makes it so you don't have to deal with all the manure so much. Waterers, they come in a variety of different kinds. The one on the left is what they call a Poisson drinker. It's automatic. I hate those things with a passion because they always leak and always spill everywhere. So if you can avoid those, I would. The one on the right are smaller ones. You can use it for with younger chicks, but you might want something different for the older birds. My preference is for the nipple drinkers, which you can see on the end there. What's my dog doing? What are you doing? Okay. And nipples drinkers can be used from day one. Whatever you use for the chicks is good for the older birds. You know, use the same thing rather than switching different types of waterers. And the advantage of the nipple drinker is that chickens cannot swallow like we do. As you can see from the image on the right, the top of their mouth, their palate is cleft. And so they cannot form a vacuum in their mouth. And so they can't swallow like we do, because, you know, if you try to swallow with your mouth open, it doesn't work. And so the way they do it is they would dip their beak in the water and then lift their neck and let gravity carry it down. And so with the nipple drinkers, if you put it up a little bit, they reach up for it, they peck at it, and the water runs down their throat. So that's it's less water spillage, less contamination than trying to have a trough or some of those other ones that I showed you. So you don't want something that's too open. They're going to spill that. They're going to poop in it. And you don't want something that's too small. That's a waterer for very small chicks, maybe for even quail type chicks. It's too small for that type of bird. Feeders, you can make some of your own. The bar across the top is an effort to try and keep the birds out. I prefer the tube drinkers, tube feeders. You can fill them up and it gravity feeds down. You just have to remember to adjust the height of the feeder for the age of the birds. So these ones, the feeders are actually a little too low. The feeder should be at the height of the back of the birds. That will get you less feed spillage with them playing with the feed and spilling it all over the place. It will also prevent them from defecating in it. And sometimes with these tube feeders, especially with laying hens, they will roost on top of them if you're not careful and poop in them. So sometimes you have to put a cover on them just to keep them from roosting on them. Speaking of roosts, perches, roosts, you need those as well in the house. Chickens like to roost at night, and they also like to perch during the day. It is very good if you have an animal, if you have a pecking order problem. Chickens are very sociable, but they do have a social hierarchy, and so they call it a pecking order. And if you're at the bottom of the pecking order, that's a lot of chickens to peck at you. So having roosts or perches where they can get away from whoever's, pecking at them is very useful, but good animal welfare thing. If you have roosters in the flock, and you do not need roosters for hens to lay eggs, but if you need fertile eggs, you need a rooster. And if you have a hen that's very popular with the rooster, then, having a way that she can get away from the rooster by getting on the perches is also beneficial to her. So they can be, round, or you can take the square 1x1s and round off the edges a little bit for them to get on. And they like to do it together as a group. If you watch them, as it starts to get dark, they will work their ways to the highest rungs, and they'll all get really close together. And then as the day is starting to form, they'll slowly come apart and come back down again. The other advantage of roosts is that they perch there at night and they poop underneath it. And so if you have a way to easily remove the roosts, to remove that manure, makes it easier for clean out. The manure is more concentrated there, and you can clean it there rather than having to clean the whole poultry house. You can just clean under the roosts more frequently than the rest of the barn. Chickens will also go outside in the winter, including when it snows, which is fine as long as their feet can get dried. So when they come back into the poultry house, having the roost gets them off the floor and lets their feet dry, so you have less likelihood of frostbite. A lot of chickens that get wet feet will get frostbite and lose their feet or their combs if they get wet. So having a place that gets them off the ground helps to keep those feet dry. Brooding young birds, chicks, when they hatch, are not able to maintain their own body temperature until they are fully feathered, which can be around 3 to 4 weeks of age. These are actually broiler chicks, which take a little longer, but you basically have to provide them with heat and those waters, and those are those horrible waters that I don't like. So when you're brooding young birds, you need to provide heat, water, and feed. And there are a number of different ways. You can make a small brooder box if you only have a few birds, using some of the plastic containers. I've used these with egg in the classroom, when you're hatching eggs in the classroom, only with slightly bigger plastic bin than I used here for the example. And this was also done when light bulbs were incandescent and gave off heat. So you may need a different heat source, a heat lamp, but you need to keep it up farther. And again, you need it wider so that they can come and go from the heat and the waters. You need a bedding material. The shavings, pine shavings is usually the best, but it is not the only option if it's too expensive. They tell you all about the temperatures, put it in, make sure that it's 95 degrees for the first week, reduce it by 5 degrees every week till you're down to 70 degrees, and then you shouldn't need heat anymore. But the best thermometer is the birds themselves. So if you look in the middle picture there, these are birds kept in a brooder ring. You put up a brooder guard around the set of birds to prevent them from wandering too far from the heat and getting chilled, or from having corners and piling in a corner and suffocating. So if the chicks are moving around nicely, they're going in and out of the heat, they're eating, drinking, chirping away contently, then the temperature's right. So you don't have to do anything to it. But if it's like the one on the left where they are trying to get under that heat source as bad as they can, and the ones in the underneath are getting smothered by the ones trying to get in, it's too cold. Make sure you turn up the heat. For some, that may be reducing the level of the heat. It may be changing a bulb wattage, whatever it is, to increase that heat. And then if you get what's happening on the far right, where they're trying to get as far away from that heat source as possible, it's too hot. So no matter what the thermometer says, that is too hot. So you need to reduce the heat, whether that's, increasing the height of the heat lamp or changing the wattage or whatever you need to do to reduce that heat, because they are too hot. In terms of feed, you can get mash, pellets, or crumbles. Mash is usually cheapest. Pellets increase feed efficiency, reduce wastage, but they're too big for young chicks, so they break them up to make crumbles. So they're all the same material, they're just processed differently. And you can feed mash or crumbles to baby chicks. Pellets when they get older. A lot of the commercial laying operations feed a mash. A lot of the feed stores sell pellets to try and reduce wastage. With the pellets, though, you will get fines. The small pieces of pellets that will break off. So when don't just keep feeding the feeder, filling the feeder every day, and so that you're starting to get fines down at the bottom. If you get any water in there, you're going to get mold. So make sure you clean out those feeders at least once a week, maybe twice a week, to make sure those fines aren't sticking down at the bottom, that you're not getting any mold growth, you're not getting any problems with the feeders. Table scraps. A lot of people ask me, is it okay to feed table scraps? As long as they have gotten their good, complete feed that has all the vitamins, minerals, proteins, amino acids, everything they need. Yeah, adding a little bit of table scraps is fine as a treat. Just make sure they finish it up, and whatever's left gets thrown out, because you don't want it to get moldy. You get mycotoxins. You don't want Clostridium botulinum growing and getting botulism in your birds. So table scraps are fine. Just be selective about what you give and make sure that you clean it up and don't leave it sitting overnight to go rotten. I get a lot of questions about cracked corn or scratch grains. If you're just giving a handful or two to the birds at night, maybe to entice them into the poultry house or whatever as a treat, that's fine. But if you are taking a complete feed and diluting it with lots of scratch grains or cracked corn, you're going to end up with a nutritional deficiency. And most of the phone calls that I get with problems of egg production or cannibalism tend to be from people who take the complete feed and dilute it with scratch grains or cracked corn. Scratch grains and cracked corn are an energy source. And so chickens typically eat to meet their energy requirement. And if you're giving them a high energy ingredient, they're going to eat less of the complete feed, and they're going to run into vitamin deficiencies, mineral deficiencies, other deficiencies, depending on how badly you dilute the feed with the scratch grains. So as a treat, in the evening after they've eaten their complete feed, that's fine. But as a routine, I would watch out for that. The only time that I would recommend it a little bit more is in the winter, because they're going to need a little bit more energy to stay warm. So adding a little cracked corn or scratch grains to as a treat in the evening, a little bit more than you would normally do during the summer, can help, rather than adding a heat lamp to your poultry house. Give them a little extra energy to make that metabolic heat that they need to stay warm. Make sure they have fresh, clean water at all times. Make sure that they have their feed nice and clean. So, you need to clean and replace the water sometimes more than once a day, depending on what kind of water you have and how dirty it gets. This, of course, can be a problem in the winter when things freeze. There are different heaters that you can put under, like, or that are meant for dog bowls or whatever to keep them from freezing. So there are different ways to keep your water from freezing rather than having to go and replace it, 2 or 3 times a day. If they can't drink, they won't eat. And if they won't eat, they can't lay eggs. So and they can't stay warm. So, you need to make sure that they have fresh feed and water all the time. If you want year-round egg production, you need to supply additional light. So today, days like today, days are getting shorter. Chickens come into production with increasing day length and they go out of production with decreasing day length. So as the days get shorter, the birds normally go out of production. If you want to keep them into production so that you have eggs all through the winter, you need to maintain at least 14 hours of light per day. If you start getting a slight decline, you can up it to 16 hours per day. Don't go much above that though. If they start going down, it may just be that they're finished laying for the year. Again, they don't lay continuously forever. They sometimes need a break. So if they stop laying eggs, they may just need a break. So with bird management, feed, water, light is important. Waste management, you have to think about what you're going to do with the manure. What are you going to do with the dead birds? Manure, if it's composted, is an excellent fertilizer. So if you've got a vegetable garden or a flower garden, you've got a great source of fertilizer. I would strongly recommend you compost it first, especially for anything that's a food, because of the salmonella in the manure could get into the food. Dead birds, if you only have 3 birds and one dies, you can, double bag it and put it in the trash. If you have a larger flock and you might have the occasional bird die, you can always throw it into the compost pile, just properly compost it. Egg collection and processing, it is best to collect at least twice a day, so that the eggs are not sitting there and getting dirty. In the winter, you might want to make sure that they don't freeze. Don't eat frozen eggs. They will expand and crack the shell, and you can get bacteria in it. The question of wash or not wash your eggs, research says it's best to wash them, but only if you do it right. So you have to wash with warm water. It's got to be warmer than the temperature of the egg, and it's got to be running water. Don't put eggs in soaking water, especially cold soaking water. It will absorb the water into the egg, and you'll get bacteria in those eggs, and you're going to get sick. So make sure that it's warmer than the temperature of the egg. Running water, washing them tends to, even if they look clean, will make them cleaner, according to the research. Refrigeration, if you're selling the eggs, they must be refrigerated. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you're selling eggs, they need to be refrigerated right after you clean them, and cleaning right after you collected them. So you collect them, clean them, and put them in the refrigerator if you want to sell eggs. If you're doing it for yourself, I would recommend the same thing. That is the best way for food safety, is to collect them, wash them, make sure they're dried before you put them in egg cartons, and put them in the refrigerator to keep them cool. Small flock owners need to be good neighbors, especially if you're doing it in a homeowners association. So make sure you keep the house clean to prevent odors and flies. Don't let your chickens go onto your neighbor's property. And sharing eggs can go a long way, but don't make them sick. So don't share dirty eggs. Don't share eggs you haven't put in the refrigerator. You don't want them to get sick. So, but sharing eggs with the neighbor, you know, to let them know about your chickens, because chickens can make a bit of noise. Laying hens always got to let the whole world know they laid an egg. Monitor your flock for health. Keep an eye on the level of production. It's good to keep records so that you can see how it changes over time, especially if you have more than like 3 chickens. Check for the quality of the eggs. Are you starting to get funny shapes, thin shells, that kind of thing? Monitor how much feed is being consumed and every day. Sometimes a health issue is first noted with a drop in feed consumption. And of course, if they can't eat, they won't lay eggs either. Always keep an eye on the fecal material. Is it suddenly getting runny? Is it bloody? Has it got worms in it? Check out the activity of the birds. Is it changing from day to day? Those are the first signs that something could be wrong. And as I said, chickens don't lay, indefinitely all the time. So as a flock, they'll come into production. The age at which they come into production is very much breed specific. Commercial egg breeders tend to come in, commercial egg layers tend to come in about 18 weeks of age. Some of the birds that we talked about with the dual purpose or the sex links come in a little later, anywhere from 20 to 24, 26 weeks of age. They should start laying unless the days are already getting shorter, then they're not likely to come into production. They'll, as a flock, they'll increase quickly, they'll peak, and then they'll slowly decline in egg production. Egg weight will also slowly increase as the birds get older. With the bigger eggs, they do not put more shell down. So it's the same amount of shell on a larger egg. So as the eggs get older, as the hens get older and the eggs get bigger, you have more likelihood of broken eggs. So you need to watch out for that. Again, keep an eye on the consistency of the manure, which is different for an adult versus a chick. And the color of the manure depends a lot on what they're eating. Could be a little greeny, depending on what they're eating, maybe a little brown. It shouldn't be red unless they're eating beets. And then the white stuff on there is their version of pee. It's the uric acid crystals that get put on when they do fecal material. They have 2 types of fecal material. They do have the regular fecal material, and then they have the cecum material that comes out, looks a little bit different. It's a little darker and a little bit more runny. So if you see the occasional fecal manure, you don't have to worry about it unless all of it is starting to become runny. Biosecurity, which is basically to prevent a biological threat. So it's good to have a biosecurity program, helps keep out diseases. It reduces the risk of sick birds. It limits the spread of disease if something gets in. Improves the overall health of the flock, and it reduces, of course, mortality losses. And so it's important that you monitor who is on your farm, because, what did they bring with them when they came on the farm? Have they got birds of their own that might be sick? When are they there? How long have they been there? Where were they before they came on the flock? Why are they even there? You got to watch out for theft as well as bringing in disease. They can carry it on their boots, they can carry it on their hats, they can carry it on their clothing, they can carry it on any piece of equipment they bring in with them. So always monitor who gets close to your birds. In terms of handling chickens, I don't like to see anyone handling a chick the way this kid is. The feet are free to scratch. If that chick gets upset for any reason, those claws are going to come out and scratch that belly area. Can be an issue. Basically, you should hold the chicken in the palm of your hand with your fingers between the feet to secure it. That allows you to move that bird around and examine all portions of it. You carry it almost like a football. It's happy, and you can be safe, and it will be safe as well. This one is almost like that, only she doesn't have hold of the feet. If you're carrying a large number of chickens, it is okay to carry them by the legs. Don't do it for too long, and carrying by the wings can be a problem if you're going any distance. If you have ducks or any waterfowl, never carry them by the legs. Their legs are much more fragile than those of the chickens. So, but if you're carrying, if you have to move 10 chickens, it's all right to put 5 in each hand if you got big enough hands to do it. Predators, you got to watch out for. Raccoons look nice and cute, but they can be quite ferocious. They are attracted to the eggs as well as the chickens, so you got to watch out for that. They love eggs. Watch out for wolves or coyotes, and depending on where you're located. Watch out for cats and dogs. Not only do they attack your birds, but they can also carry disease, especially cats. I know that some people like to use cats for rodent control, but they can also carry some diseases that chickens can get. So you got to watch out for that. Again, I like to see them confined for their own safety. Make sure that nobody can dig under. A lot of times that means burying the metal about 6 inches down under the ground and curving it out so that if they try to burrow under, they hit the wire and can't get in to get your birds. Rodent control, you really got to watch out. 1, they eat a lot of your food. 2, they look gross, especially the rats. But also they can carry disease as well. And so the picture on the right was a farm in Minnesota that I was consulting with, and they were raising broilers, and their broilers were testing positive for salmonella quite frequently. And this is the reason. They were storing their feed that they made themselves like this. They had a major rodent problem, and the rodents were the source of the salmonella in their processing facility, as well as the birds themselves. So store them in a metal container with a nice tight lid so that they can't get at the feed. In terms of some of the resources that are available, we got smallflocks.net. That has, I'm not sure if that one still works. Let me check on that one. Our department website has lots of information. We have poultry publications, we have general poultry information, youth programs, small backyard flock specific information, urban specific, consumer education, and then if you're into commercial operations. We also have a Facebook page, Kentucky Poultry. We do webinars every once in a while. We are working on a webinar series for March that will look at breeding poultry. So that might be of interest to some people, especially if you're into purebreds. In terms of online, the electronic version of the National Cooperative Extension Service, specifically for small and backyard flocks, is at that website, poultryextension.org. It has all sorts of articles. We do webinars as well. All our webinars are recorded and are up there. We have a Facebook page specific for that one as well. Lots of articles, blog. We also have Ask Extension, where you can type in your question. It gets routed to different experts. It can take a day or two to get through the system, especially if it's not properly coded. You're much faster to email me directly, and I will try and answer your question as soon as possible. It is actually much faster that right now, especially to get me via email than via phone. With the COVID situation, I've been working from home, especially now that my internet's back up and running. And so my phone at the office will notify me when somebody calls, but then I have to call you back. So it's better to just email me directly with your question. And that's all I have. And my voice lasted. Did we get any questions?
Dr. Jacob, thanks so much. Great information there. If you have a question, if you want to, you can type it in the chat pod. I will, and while we're waiting on somebody that might have a question, I'll ask a question. Typically we see chicks appear in farm stores in the spring, and I know some farm stores are now, it seems like they're keeping them all year long, or at least a majority of the year. I presume if you're looking at getting into raising chickens, whether it be for meat or eggs, right now's the time to start doing some homework. Would you suggest?
I would agree on that. Yeah, you need to do your homework before the birds become available, before the hatcheries are starting to sell them, so that you know why you want to do it and what exactly it is you want to do. So that you can start thinking about your housing. Where are you going to get your feed? Where are you going to, get the water year round, even if it freezes? How are you going to get it to your birds? Who's going to take care of them? What happens if you want to go on a holiday, right? And if you're looking for, if your kids are looking for a money-making operation that they can do, right? There are people in the city who have chickens who would like to go on a holiday. So having a place set up that's separate from your own chickens, that you can take somebody's chickens and babysit them for 2 weeks while they go on holidays and charge them for that. You get the eggs while you got them, and you charge them to keep the birds, right? Or if they want you to come and take care of their birds or whatever. And again, I know people who will pay $20-30 for, a 14-week-old chicken, right? You won't in the country, because they know they're not worth that much. But a city folk who just wants 2 or 3 chickens, will pay that, so they don't have to raise them from a baby, and they know it's a female, because sometimes you get sexing errors and they can't keep roosters or whatever, right? So raising up, I don't know, 30 pullet chicks, and then selling them in the city, the feed store in the city, put up an advertisement that you'll, especially if they're different colored breeds or whatever, something different for them. It's a little fundraiser for your club or for a kid or whatever.
That's some great information there. That's something that, I hadn't thought about. I think that would be wonderful. And
because I'm always getting requests. I just want 3 chickens, that are ready to lay. Where can I get them? And it's like, well, nobody does that.
Right.
Yeah.
Great ideas. I did see one kudos down there. Somebody said thank you. So we got that.
I hope they gathered something from it. Does anybody actually have chickens? Woody, Danny, or Candy, do you guys actually have chickens? Are you thinking about having chickens, or what's your situation?
I'm thinking about it. I'd like to eventually get them.
Are you talking large numbers, small numbers?
No, just small numbers to start off with.
Right.
I'd kind of eventually like to get to the point where I've got layers and fryers.
Right.
Yeah.
And see, that's
Oh.
where sometimes a dual purpose type bird works, because they still have meat that you know, even the males have it. You don't have, you can get cheaper if you buy straight run, which is not sexed. And so you need to do something with the males, you know, so you can eat them. And if you have any connoisseurs of chicken, because you know the whole question of what does chicken taste like, right? Chicken doesn't taste like much of anything. It's what, especially if it's a broiler type chicken. If you're wanting to make quick money, most times it's a broiler type chicken because they grow so fast and they're so feed efficient. But if you have any ethnic market around you at all, they prefer an older bird. So the heritage type chickens, and I've seen online some of those heritage chickens going for outrageous prices. You just have to deal with how you're going to get them processed, which is a major problem in Kentucky. We're trying to sell chickens. We're working on trying to get people to invest in processing facilities for custom, but a lot of them are realizing it's a lot of work for very little pay. But you know, there is the opportunity there. So
How much difference is it raising turkeys and quail from chickens?
well, for turkeys it takes longer. Quail it takes less. Quail depends on whether you do bob white or Japanese quail, or Coturnix quail they call it. Again, processing is always the issue. Quail, you can get, you know, the meat faster, but it's harder to process because they're so small. But they are meal sized. The turnover is much faster. There are different strains of Coturnix quail. The jumbo, for example, you know, grows really fast and is very efficient. If you're doing turkeys, it depends whether you do a commercial type turkey or you do a heritage turkey. And if you have the right market, you can actually sell heritage turkeys for an unrealistic price. We have a person that does it as a CSA, so it's community supported agriculture. He does heritage turkeys. Not sure where he gets them processed anymore because he used to do it at Marksbury and they closed. But he has heritage turkeys that he breeds himself, and they're free range heritage turkeys. And you know, he gets a couple of $100 for a turkey that has, you know, half the meat of a regular turkey, but it has a lot more flavor. So yeah, it's all what people are willing to pay for. And if you're looking to sell, don't try selling it to country folk, because they know the wealth of a, you know, the price of a chicken and the price of a turkey. It's more the city folk who are looking for something different for Christmas. There is also right now a big demand for duck eggs. We did a program on raising ducks for eggs, and some people that are allergic to chicken eggs can eat duck eggs. Not everybody that's allergic to chicken eggs can eat duck eggs. It depends on what part of the egg you're allergic to, or how you're sensitive to it. I have a friend who is allergic to chicken eggs, but she can eat duck eggs. But it's really hard to buy duck eggs. There's just not a lot of duck eggs on the market. And the khaki Campbells and the Indian runners, they can produce more eggs than chickens. So you just gotta follow egg law. Gotta wash them and refrigerate them. So,
Do the egg laws apply to all the poultry, the turkeys and
the egg law?
Yeah, are they
Well,
the same across the board?
Well, the only species that are raised for eggs for human consumption are chickens, ducks, and quail, and the egg law holds for all three. Turkeys are not usually raised for eggs because feed efficient. They are not good producers of eggs. Neither are geese. And so an egg law is pretty simple. I mean, as long as you sell less than 60 dozen eggs in any 1 week, you don't need a license. You just need to follow egg law, which is washing, packaging properly. You cannot reuse egg cartons. You can't use somebody else's egg cartons. You have to have certain things on the egg cartons with your name and contact information, so that if anybody gets sick from your eggs, they can trace it back to the producer. You have to have the food safety statement with eggs that's worded a certain way. You have to have the egg nutrition label from USDA that has to be on there. And then you have to have a sell by or best by date on there as well. So you have the packaging date, and the best by is like 45 days after packaging date. Sell by is usually 30 days from packaging date. So that has to be on there as well. But you don't have to pay for an egg handler's license, and you don't have to pay the fee, I don't know what it is, like 2 cents an egg or something, or 2 cents a dozen or something. Like a checkoff, just like they do with pork and some of those. But for poultry meat, it's the same. They all have to be processed in a acceptable facility, which means inspection. And we only have 2 USDA inspected custom processing plants, Central Meats, and one out in Western Kentucky, Solder or something or other. Misty Lee took over that one. And then we have the mobile processing facility based out of Frankfurt. It's not overly mobile, but that's what they call it. So, and they're usually, and none of them do waterfowl. Nobody will process waterfowl. They're too hard to pluck. So.
That's great information. Good questions and comments there. It looks like everybody commented there. I know some others had commented they had chickens, so good stuff there. And
okay, well, again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. That's my job, I'm extension, so I help people, especially small and backyard flocks. So that's my email. Feel free to contact me.
Thank you for putting that in there. Definitely, yeah. Definitely give Dr. Jacob an email, shoot her an email, and or if we can help you on the county level, contact us. I know this is reaching into Virginia as well, and so for the Virginia folks, the laws may be different.
Oh, they will be different.
So definitely get with Virginia folks, get with Phil, and see what those laws are over there, the egg laws, the processing laws, yeah, all that sort of thing.
They may actually have more processing facilities there than we do. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And that would be good to know. Yeah. So if that's something you're looking at on the Virginia side of the line, definitely check into that. But Dr. Jacob, thank you so much for spending the evening with us. And
no problem.
Glad your internet held together.
Yes. And now I have my cable back so I can watch the basketball game.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Coming on in who knows, 2 or 3 hours from now.
no, it started 30 minutes ago. So the women are playing. Oh no, it's the men today. The men are playing. Yeah, well, the women are playing right now, and then the men are playing later. So
gotcha. So 2 ball games tonight. I forgot about
2 ball games today. Yeah.
Awesome. So it's good to see everybody. And if y'all have any questions, definitely give us a call. Dr. Jacob, thank you so much. And everybody have a great evening. And we'll see you all on the next episode of Mountain Zoom.
Okay. Bye-bye.